Wednesday up at Spiritual Retreat, and I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. I think the Lord's given us 8 great messages. It is Spiritual Retreat, so we go up there not just to compete with one another, not just to have fun, but also to grow spiritually. And God's given us, I think, 8 great messages. I can't wait to share with you when we're up there. But tonight we're taking another page from our summer series, our Camp Discovery series, Home Time. And before we get into the message, let's do a little activity, a little game. Tonight we're going to play what we call the Advantages game. Okay? So I'm going to call out 2 options. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to, well, let's do this. Let's stand. Let's stand again. I'm going to call out 2 options. The first option will be on my right hand. The second option will be on my left hand. I'm not going to ask you to move because it would get too crowded, but I'll ask you to lean. Okay? So you either lean towards my right hand or you lean towards my left hand. What you think is the biggest advantage between these 2 choices. Okay. So I'm going to give you 2 choices. You tell me by your leaning which you think is the biggest advantage. Owning a car or taking the bus. Is anybody leaning to take a gamma? Do you really think it's advantageous? Why? Francisco does that in his Tesla. Anybody else think it's more advantageous to take the bus? No? Okay. All right. You do? Oh, the gas. Well, that's true. Gas prices, I guess, make it more. If you're over 65, the bus is free. Hey, I didn't know that. Or a veteran. All buses? No, just the ones that I don't ride. Okay, so most people said owning a car. A few said riding a bus. How about another one? Living in a big city or living in a small town? No, Merced is not a big city. I would say 500,000 or more. David, why are you leaning towards a big city? Have you not been in Merced? Who else leaned big city? Sal? More to do. Who else? You like the big city? You like the big city, little Adam? You can eat Chinese food here. Okay, so the majority of you said you'd rather live in a small town than a big city. How about this one? Working from home or going to the office? How many say, oh, this one's more mixed? Gabe, why do you want to work at the office?
Because when I want to detach from work, the best way to do it is knowing that when I get home, I am home. I don't have the specter of the work waiting for me in another room.
Okay, that's true. Jasmine, you said working at home. She's 3 days into her new career of working from home. So we'll see in 6 months if you have the same answer. Anybody else want to share why you want to work at the office? Omar? Yeah, believe me, I'm not lazy. I don't know when to shut it off is the problem. I think Gabe was right. I don't know when to stop. Adam, Okay. That may be, well, that only works if you're a martial arts teacher. One last one. Well, no, I've got two. One more, though. Being an only child or having siblings? Gabe, you want to be? Denise, why did you say being an only child?
Because I am an only child.
Gabe, why do you have siblings?
Yeah, they're fantastic in their own right, but my life was really good till I had that first sibling.
Who else said I'd rather be an only child? Deanna, and you got lots of siblings. All right, well, as the typical middle child, I can say I'm glad I had siblings. Taught me to share. Taught that the world didn't revolve around me. Though my sisters did think it did. But one last one. Okay, one last one. Being married or being single? Married or single?
I got pushed.
All right, you can sit down.
Hey, Pastor, I started out the worst kid, ended up the best kid. I made a comeback.
That last one, being married or being single, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And we're going to let the Apostle Paul answer that question for us out of 1 Corinthians 7. And you might be surprised at his answer. The majority in this room said, being married is more advantageous. But from Paul's perspective, there's quite a few advantages of being single. And we want to look at that tonight. Let me say right away, for those of you who are single adults, every married adult in here at one time was a single adult. So we do know somewhat how it is for you to be a single adult. As a father of two single adults, I am completely sympathetic to the situations that single adults face. I'm not here tonight to give you a 5-step plan for ending or bringing an end to your single adulthood. Our text tonight is not going to give you a path to marriage. Rather, I want to encourage you to thrive in the season of singleness that God has you in. And you can thrive in that season because Scripture says you can. And I want you to understand, I'm not saying that you will always be unmarried. But my desire is to help you enjoy the season of life that God has you in right now, whether married or unmarried. So let's look here at what the Scripture says, 1 Corinthians chapter 7. The first 7 verses, Paul is talking about married couples. We'll get to you in a few weeks, okay? I'll bring the big hammer for you married couples. But in verse number 7, Paul says this. The Holy Spirit says this. For I would that all men were even as myself, but every man hath his proper gift of God, one after this manner and another after that. I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. So verse 8 gives us the context of verse number 7, and Paul is telling us, I wish that everybody was like me. He obviously is talking about being a single adult, being unmarried, unattached. Attitudes, I realize today in 2026, attitudes towards relationships and marriage are certainly shifting. Many people are staying single longer than perhaps ever before, longer than ever in human history. Yet I would not be bold enough to say that most people view singleness as a gift. But that's exactly what Paul says. That's exactly what God says through the Apostle Paul. That's exactly what the Holy Spirit is saying here. And I want you to see, first of all tonight, receiving the gift, receiving singleness as a gift. Paul says, but I would that all men were even as myself, but every man hath his proper gift of God. One after this manner and another after that. And then he talks about being single. And he's saying it's a gift to be married, but it's also a gift to be single. And you need to look at singleness as your gift from God for you right now. It's surprising, and I don't think most people would think of it in that way, that the Bible uses the word gift here in the same context of being a single adult. Some may be sitting here tonight or hear this online and think, well, if singleness is a gift, Pastor, worst gift ever. But when somebody gives you a gift, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to receive it, to say thank you for it. And then you're supposed to use that gift for intended purposes. You're supposed to use that gift that was given to you. And please understand, these scriptures are not demanding or mandating celibacy. And they're not saying that one day God might not give you the gift of marriage. But for now, there are some who have the gift of singleness. So what does God say? What does the Bible say here in this passage about receiving that gift? Well, it starts with, I'm going to give you 3 steps here to receiving this gift. It starts with, first of all, accepting the gift. Verse number 8. But if they cannot contain, let them marry. No, that's 9. I'm sorry. I say therefore to the unmarried and the widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. Hey, let me ask you tonight, have you ever gotten a gift that you didn't like, or you didn't need? Or maybe you liked it, but you already had 2 toasters and you didn't need a third. When we get gifts that we don't like for birthdays or Christmas, what do we usually do? We usually go to the store. You're right, John. We usually go to the store and we try and return or exchange that gift for something else. We don't. It's a slight way of rejecting that. And I find that a lot of single adults, and I know that I was once in this situation myself, spend a large amount of their time trying to exchange the gift that God has given them. They try and say, I don't like this gift, God. I want this other gift. Here, take it back. How do I get this? And when you're doing that, when you're spending all your time and all your effort and your focus on trying to exchange the gift that God has for you, you're not accepting it. You're resisting it, but you're not accepting it. Constantly trying to exchange the gift that God has for you is not acceptance. I know, I've been there, I've done that, but the Bible here tells us to receive the gift by accepting it. That means learning to come to terms with that gift. And what singleness or whatever gift it may be has for you right now. And not being distraught or devastated if there's no exchange in sight. Not to panic or feel that we've got to hurry up and exchange the gift before the 30-day warranty runs out. I have found in life that acceptance is the key to contentment. You'll never learn to be content if you're dissatisfied with what God is doing in your life. And coming to terms with the gift that God has for you right now, I'm telling you, it's going to be crucial to developing contentment in your life. And contentment is the key to having a full and joyous life. Miserable people are discontented people. Yeah, they don't go, you will never see a discontented, happy person. Where you find misery, you find discontent. Where you find discontent, you find misery. I watched over the last 3 years Miss Katie Flores graciously accept the gift of being bedridden, being unable to feed herself, unable to even move herself, unable to bathe herself, unable to even go to the restroom by herself, being completely and totally helpless and dependent upon others to do everything for you. And yet I can say every time I stepped in that house to visit Val and Katie, Miss Katie's laying there with a smile on her face. You see, most people would take that gift and become miserable with it. Most people would look at that and say, I don't want this. I don't like this. But she always kept a smile on her face and a great sense of humor and a pleasant disposition. Why? Because she had accepted that this was what God had for her in her life right now. And there wasn't changing it. There wasn't anything she could do about it. She had just accepted that this was what God wanted for her in her life right now. I'll tell you what, if an invalid can do that for 3 years, why do you and I struggle with much lesser things than just accepting that that's God's will for our life? Whoever told you that life was going to be bubble gum and cotton candy, wherever we got that concept, it's wrong. And we're going to have to learn to accept some gifts that we didn't like. When I was in New York, and I'm probably going to preach in New Zealand, I took that valley that I went through and I went to 2 Corinthians 11, there where Paul talks about that messenger of Satan. And he uses that term, gift. And I preached a message in New York. I'll probably preach in New Zealand on the gift of weakness. When God makes you weak, you say, who wants to be weak? Nobody wants it. But I'm telling you, sometimes it's a gift. And I know nobody may want singleness, or you may not want singleness, but look at it as God's gift to you for right now and just accept it. That God knows more than you do, that God is wiser than you. You know what Miss Katie, I really believe, did? She trusted that God knew what was best. And you should do that with whatever gifts God brings into your life. Once you accept it, that's step one, accepting it. Once you accept it, you're ready for step 2, and that's the abiding in the gift. Notice in verse number 8, it's going to be repeated. I say therefore to the unmarried and the widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. Look at verse number 20. Let every man abide in the same calling wherein he was called. And if you read this context, the whole context of this chapter is talking about those who are married and those who are single. And Scripture is saying, let every man abide in the same calling wherein he is called. Look down in verse number 24. But brethren, let every man wherein he is called, therein abide with God. 3 times, twice in 4 verses, the Bible urges us to abide in the gift that God has given to us. If we're married, we should not seek to be unmarried. We should abide in the gift that God has given us. If we're single, we should abide in the gift of singleness. This means that I not only accept the gift, but I learn to live in it. I learn to abide in it. To thrive, not just to survive. See, you can be in something, but you can walk around with your lip dragging the ground, and that's not really abiding. Abiding is saying, this is not where I thought I would be, but this is what God has for me in my life right now. And so if this is what God has for me right now, I'm going to live it to the fullest. I'm going to do my best with it. I am going to thrive in this situation. I'm going to abide in it. That's abiding. I'm going to connect this thought with some practical advice in a moment, but I wonder tonight, are you abiding in the gift that God has given to you? Now notice the key to this at the end of verse number 24. You say, how can anybody abide in singleness? Because you're not single. You don't have another human that you're bonded to or bound to. But you are abiding with God. God is always there. God is always with you. The purpose of this gift of singleness is often to draw us closer to God. And throughout this entire chapter, Paul is stressing, what Paul is stressing is not whether we are married or unmarried, but whether we are following God's will for our lives. Because that's the utmost importance. As a dad of 2 single adults, I long for them to one day be married. I want grandchildren. But I've had to come to terms with the fact that more than I want those things, and more than I even want marriage for my boys, what I want for their life most of all is for them to be in the will of God. And if that means them being single and in God's will, then so be it. If that means there's never any grandchildren, then so be it. Because I'd rather my children be in the will of God than anything else. I want my sons to have a close and vibrant relationship with God. You ever thought about what Mary said when she received what, let's be honest, I know it was the Christ child, but it was a very inconvenient and very unwelcome gift of expecting a child outside of marriage, especially in Bible days. You know what she said in Luke 1:38? And Mary said, Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be it unto me according to thy word. She knew in that moment this was going to cause problems for her life. She knew in this moment it might be the end of her relationship with Joseph. She knew in this moment she was going to be an outcast, a stigma in society. And yet she said, I'm willing to accept and abide in the gift that God gave me because I want God's will done in my life. Above everything else, I want God's will to be done. I've told my sons, well, let me back up. When you get to that point where you can say, if it pleases God, then it pleases me, then you're abiding in your gift. The question is not, what do you want? The question is, what does God want for me? The truth is, I'm just being honest, to every single adult here tonight, if you really wanted to be married, you could find somebody, no matter how low, you could find somebody to marry you. But it wouldn't be the person you want to be married to. And it wouldn't be the person that God has for you. I've told my sons that. I've told them, look, guys, when they sometimes are down about being single, down about being lonely, and look, you could be married. You just got to drop your standards, drop your morals, and you can find somebody to get married to, but it won't be the right person, and it won't be a happy marriage. We're pretty good at managing to get what we want. And what you need to want more than anything is God's will for your life. It is dangerous to insist that our will be done and not God's. So, folks, abide in the gift. That's step number 2. Accept the gift, abide in the gift, and then, boy, this is the most difficult one. You ready? You got to learn to appreciate the gift. You got to get yourself to the point where you're actually thankful for the gift, where you're actually grateful for the gift. And it may be difficult right now to see how in the world that's even possible. But what if God could show you your life and could reveal to you that for now He has given you the gift of singleness to spare you a lot of pain and misery in your life? What if God has given you the gift of singleness because He has tremendous plans for you in the future that you can't even envision, but He knows? If you could see that and see through the eyes of God, I know it would make it easier to appreciate the gift that God has given you. But this is where faith and trust comes into play. Look down in verse number 32. But I would have you without carefulness. He that is unmarried careth for the things that belong to the Lord, how that he may please the Lord. Here's actually a benefit to being single. There's more freedom, less distractions, more ability to serve the Lord. When I was 25 and without any prospects, for a long time I walked around, moping around. Finally, when I was about 25, I made a decision. God, if you want me to be single, I'm going to be single, and I'm going to make the most of my life. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to go back to college. I'm going to further my education. I prepared, studied, and took the LSAT and made a high enough score that I could have went to law school and was going to go. I was going to thrive at being a single adult. I was no longer going to mope around and feel sorry for myself, but I was going to learn to appreciate the gift of singleness that God had given to me. And wouldn't you know it, just as I was learning to appreciate that gift, God goes and messes it all up and brings dawn into my life. I don't think He had ever done that if I hadn't learned to appreciate the gift. Learning to appreciate the gift was key for Him saying, okay, he's learned contentment in this area. Now I can give him something else. Now, I'm not guaranteeing. Don't sue me if that doesn't happen for you, okay? But my point is this: contentment is a choice. We live a lot of our lives saying, if only. If only I was married. Or for some, if only I wasn't married. If only I had a husband or a wife. Or if only I had a different husband or wife. In whatever state we're in, we need to choose to be content. Nancy DeMoss said this: if we're not content with what we have, we will never be content with what things we want. She went on to write, for those that are married, you want to copy this down because this is good. Marriage is not about finding someone to make us happy. It's about learning to make somebody else happy. It's not about getting. It's about giving. That's what marriage is about. And we need to learn that even as singles, because if we walk around thinking, if only I have this, then I'll be happy, you're going to be going into a relationship with the wrong mindset. You've got to learn, I'm going to be happy regardless if I have this or not. Because contentment is a choice that I make. And I am going to be content with what God has brought into my life or not brought into my life. So that's receiving singleness as a gift. Number 2, let's recognize the benefits of singleness. How can you appreciate being single? Well, believe it or not, we played that little game, that little illustration. There are advantages to being single that those who are married do not have. I'll name 3. The reduction of restraints. You have fewer people telling you what you can and cannot do. A single adult has more freedom than those who are married. Every decision must be, when you're married, every decision must be considered in the light of that other person in the relationship. Every choice weighed out by not only how this affects you, but also how it affects them. Look down at verse number 27. Art thou bound unto a wife? Notice that word. Art thou bound unto a wife? Seek not to be loosed. Art thou loosed from a wife? Seek not a wife. Notice the words the Bible is using. The Bible is admitting marriage is a bond. And I'm not talking about an investment bond. It is a linking, a binding of 2 people together. So that you no longer are a free operator to be able to just go and do as you please and do what you want. You're bound. When you're single, you're loosed. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. There are benefits to being married, to being bound. But would it be easier to run a race by yourself or run a race with your leg tied to another person? This is one thing, I'll be honest, I probably shouldn't say this. My wife will probably get on to me later. This is one thing I'm concerned about with Bryson, our oldest son. He enjoys his freedom. And because of that, I wonder if he ever really would want to be married. He likes being able to go where he wants to go and do what he wants to do when he wants to do it. Because there is a freedom of restraint in singleness. There is a liberty that comes with singleness that must be sacrificed for marriage. Here's what I'll say. While God has you single, enjoy and use that liberty for as long as God has it for you. And use it for this next thing, to do something for God. We see, number 2, the redirection of responsibilities. A married person has responsibilities, has devotion towards God, but they also have responsibilities and obligations to a spouse and children and family. But look it down at verse number 32. But I would have you without carefulness, he that is unmarried careth for the things that belong to the Lord, how that he may please the Lord. But he that is married careth for the things that are of the world, how he may please his wife. The Bible is saying, look, one of the benefits of being single is you can redirect your responsibilities and you can be more responsible, more devoted, more able to serve God than the married person. It's not a lessening of responsibilities. It's just as much a responsibility. It's just redirected from a spouse to the Lord. The single years provide an opportunity to devote yourself to Christ in a way that married people simply do not have. Simply put, you can give more to God than those who are married. You can give more time. You can give more service. You can even possibly give more financially. You can and should redirect your responsibilities to doing more for Christ than others your age who are married. That's one of the benefits. Number 3, there's the refocusing on righteousness. Look down at verse number 34. There is a difference also between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman careth for the things of the Lord, that she may be holy in both in body and spirit. But she that is married careth for the things of the world, how that she may please her husband. And this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you, but for that which is comely, and that ye may attend upon the Lord without distraction. For many years in our marriage, Dawn would get up early before I did, and she would get up and have her devotions, and she would pray. And then about the time she was done, she would come in and I would be waking up and I would get up and she would get ready for the day. When I went through my bout with insomnia and anxiety and all that mess, I completely upended and changed my schedule and hers too. And so now I get up around the same time that she gets up. And she was so used to having the house all to herself in quietness. She could go to the living room and she could sit there with her cup of coffee and read her Bible and pray and spend time with the Lord. And now I come in like a bull in a china shop because I don't know how to be quiet. And she's trying to read and I'm trying to fix my coffee. And I'm just being loud, and I'll tell you, it created a little bit of tension for a while. We were both trying to do the same thing. We were both trying to draw closer to the Lord. But being married means that sometimes there's distraction and friction there. And you don't have that. You can spend your time focusing on being close to God, closer than you've ever been. Paul is saying the single adult is able to keep their eyes more focused on heaven than those who are married. Singles can give their undivided attention. I love that verse there in verse number 35, that you may attend upon the Lord without distraction. Marriage tends to pull our focus off the eternal and onto the temporal. But those that are single are more able to serve the Lord without distraction. When you're single, while you're single, take advantage of these benefits. So we've seen the receiving of the gift of singleness. We've seen the recognizing of the gift of singleness. Let's finish with some positive words of encouragement to those who are single in responding positively to singleness. I'm going to be doing this periodically throughout the summer to different groups. But at the end of the service tonight, I'm going to be at the door, and I'm going to be handing out a book that I have read, and it was a great blessing to me as I read it. I liked it so much, I ordered a copy to hand out to every single adult here. In fact, I got a copy and gave one to both my sons while we were on vacation with them. It's this book. It's called Singled Out for Him. It was written, now let me tell you a little bit about the author. It was written by a lady, Nancy DeMoss Wogelmuth. Nancy Lee DeMoss, as most people know her, lived as a single adult until she was, I think, in her 50s. Then surprisingly, she had just resigned herself to being a single adult lady. Surprisingly, in her 50s, out of the blue, unexpected, God brought a husband into her life. She was married, but she wasn't married but just a few years, and her husband got cancer and then died. So now she's back being a single adult again and a widow. The practical principles that I'm going to share with you in closing tonight come from this book, but she expounds on them much more. I think it will be a great help to you. In fact, I would say to those that maybe are married or those that have friends that are single, you might want to order one of these books for them off of Amazon. I'm going to give a copy to those who are in attendance tonight at the door. If you want one. So you just got to stick out your hand and I'll give it to you, okay? 4 principles, I'm done. Here's what you can do. Responding positively to singleness. Number 1, letter A. Serve Christ with all your time, abilities, and energy. Serve Christ. As I've already said, you have more freedom to do that. You have more focus to be able to do that. It's easy when you're single to become self-absorbed. But single adults can often fall into the trap of self-seeking and self-fulfillment. Let me encourage you tonight, use this season in your life to pour yourself into serving Christ with everything you have. Make Him the apple of your eye, the focus of your devotion. Letter B. Number 2. Relinquish all expectation of material, physical, and emotional security. Somebody said this, you will never realize that Christ is all you need until He's all you have. When He's all you have, you'll come to really understand that He's all you need. Here is what single adults sometimes don't realize. There is no one, married or unmarried, who doesn't live with some unfulfilled longings. You know what's worse than being a lonely single adult? Being a lonely married adult. There are a lot of lonely married adults in broken marriages, unhappy marriages with no way out. I told you the other week, my pastor said this, loneliness can end in a day, but regret lasts a lifetime. Those longings that you have are meant to drive you to your knees and to make you more detached from this world and more attached to your home in heaven. Sin does not come from unfulfilled longings. It comes from demanding that those longings be met here and now. Unfulfilled longings becomes the material for sacrifice. Think about this. We all have to have something that we can give to God. You know what you single adults can give? You can give your longings. It becomes material to say, God, I have this desire, I have this longing, but I'm going to give it to you. It's my sacrifice for you. They give you an opportunity to give something to God that is unique to only you. Number 3, commit to develop personal discipline. You say, what do you mean personal discipline? Physical discipline. When I was going through the bout with anxiety, I determined I'm going to get in the best physical shape of my life. And so while I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning and couldn't sleep, I was doing jumping jacks and push-ups, and I determined, hey, if I'm going to be awake, I might as well do something productive with that time. I'm going to get in good physical shape. It didn't last long, but, you know. Physical discipline, emotional discipline, spiritual discipline are all vital in serving the Lord. And if we're unwilling to be disciplined in basic areas of the body, there is no guarantee that we will have discipline in other more important areas. This also carries with it the notion of being committed to being morally pure. Moral purity begins with the heart. We must be mindful what we feed our minds, because that will determine our behavior and affects the state of our hearts. Fourthly, lastly, develop relationships with families. God gave every one of us a great gift. It was His plan. It was His idea. It's what He says He loves. And He says, I've given it to you, New Testament Christians, to have something that nobody else in the history of humanity has ever had. The local church. A body of believers. A family. Singles whose lives are plagued with chronic loneliness have not discovered or taken up their place in the body of Christ. If you're lonely, it's because you choose to be. Because I know this church well enough to know there are people that would invite you into their life, would welcome you into their life, who want you into their life, and who want to do things with you. Abby will fish with anybody. He keeps looking for somebody to teach him how to catch a fish. You're only alone if you choose to be. I thought about this the other day. I might have said this, but if I did, you'll hear it again. It's worth twice the effort, right? I want to ask people that seem determined to be miserable, what does your ideal life look like? I see teenagers sometimes, they come to church and they sit there with their arms crossed and they just look around and dare somebody to speak to them. Have their head hung low or their hood over their head. And they look absolutely lonely and miserable. And I'm thinking, that can't be what your ideal life looks like. Your ideal life probably looks like having lots of friends and having lots of people that care about you. And I want to ask them, what does your ideal life look like? And then I want to follow that up with a second question. What are you doing to arrive at that place? Because there's the problem. The Bible says for a man to have friends, he must what? Show himself friendly. You know what it doesn't say? For a man to have friends, he must sit in the church pew until somebody comes and shakes his hand. No. It tells you get up and you be friendly. You care about people. You invest in people. You be what you want others to be to you. You're not alone. You're a part of the incredible family of faith. Nancy DeMoss says this, those who interrelate only with those whose needs and interests are similar to their own are far more vulnerable to the crippling, deadly effects of selfishness. So I say get involved in real homes. Volunteer to babysit. Spend time with other families. There are lots of women around here who would gladly pass off their kid for a couple of minutes and say, here, you deal with them. Involve yourself in the ministry of the church. Married adults, we need to do our part too. To pray, to involve, and never isolate single adults in our midst. Being single is not a lesser life, it's just a different life. Here's what I want you to take home tonight. Tonight, maybe your home is a home only with a room for one. That doesn't mean your life's empty. That doesn't mean your home is incomplete, and it doesn't mean that God has forgotten you. It means that just during this season of life, God has given you a unique opportunity to know Him, serve Him, and walk with Him without distraction, without restraint. A room for one is not a room waiting to be filled. It is simply a room that God has intentionally, purposely, and lovingly designed just for you so that He can have all of you. Now listen, if God gives you marriage one day, receive it with gratitude. If God gives you the gift of singleness for longer than you expected, receive it with trust. You know, the world will tell you that a table set for one is a sad sight. But God can do more with one fully surrendered, undistracted, undivided life than the world could ever imagine. Paul said it very plainly in verse number 35. Not to put a restraint upon you, not to promote, but to promote what's good, that ye might give your undivided, undistracted attention to the Lord. That's not a consolation prize, folks. That's a calling. So tonight, whether singleness is something you've embraced or whether it's something you're still wrestling with, I want to ask you one question. Are you giving God all of the room for one that He has given to you? Don't waste this season waiting, wanting, wishing for another. Give this season to God. Don't sit around asking, when is my life going to begin? Ask, Lord, how can I glorify you in the life that you've given me right now? A home for one can still be a full, happy home, full of purpose, full of peace, full of service, full of joy, and full of God. You can thrive, not just survive, being a single adult. Our heads bowed, our eyes closed. Don's coming to the piano. Maybe there's some that want to come pray and say, you know what? I know some single adults that I want to pray for. I don't pray for them as often and as much as I should. Maybe there's some that, even if you're married, you heard some things tonight that God spoke to your heart about, and you said, I want to be content with where I am in life. I want to learn contentment. Whatever it may be, whatever God may have said to your heart tonight, if God spoke to your life, come and do business with Him. Come and talk to Him. Let's bow our heads, keep our eyes closed, and stand our feet. Don's going to play. If you need to